It's Saturday morning, I'm Steve, and this is the season finale of the Saturday morning TV revival for the generation who grew up dodging sky dancers, swapping monsters in my pocket, launching micro machines off the sofa, and desperately trying not to lose every tiny Polly Pocket accessory under the carpet. We've got a jam-packed show. Bit by Bit is back as we dig into the next part of the Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook to get you playing as quickly as possible. In Hit and Miss, I'll be running through the best and worst comics of my week. We're heading over to the book club to meet up with our pirate gang from One Piece once again. I'll give you some quick tips on how to track your book collection and what you've still got left on the shelf. We've got the most moist Pokemon pack battle game show around with Lick That Pokemon. Just one line returns for another chance to guess a book from the very first line. And in the spotlight, I'll be looking at one of my favourite cooperative board games of all time. So take that, all you cheaters. But before any of that, we're starting the way we always do, with Hobby Hangout, where we celebrate last week's wins and set our goals for the next. So let's head over to the hobby bench for Hobby Hangout. Welcome to Hobby Hangout, the part of the show where we look back over the last week and celebrate all the wins and achievements that we've had together. It does not matter what your hobby is, everything is celebrated here, no matter how big or how small it might seem. Maybe you finally mastered your homemade slime recipe without fusing it to the kitchen table. Maybe you taught yourself an entire dance routine based solely off 90s TV theme tunes. Or maybe you spent 3 evenings in a row trying to knit a jumper for a baguette because it looked cold. Whatever you got up to, let me know in the comments and let us celebrate those wins together. For me, my hobby goal was to build the final models I needed for my Warhammer 40k tournament this weekend. I had 5 models left to build. I had these 3 little dudes, which are called Eradicators. This guy with the super cool banner called a Blade Guard Ancient, and then probably the most infuriating model I have put together in years, the leader of my army. If you want to know what they all do, no idea. I'll tell you when I figure it out at the tournament on Saturday, because YOLO. This was mostly a fun and relaxing goal. I sat in front of the TV, putting the models together while watching some documentary on Channel 4. But my stress levels went through the roof with this last little guy. Without boring you with all my pains, he is made from resin. And resin models, especially from Games Workshop, are notoriously bad. He had blemishes everywhere that I had to fix. Nothing fitted together properly. Resin snaps if you even just look at it funny. And his spear was so bent that I had to break out the hairdryer and slowly coax it back into shape. And to top that off, he is an old model that I have had on the shelf for years. And in the time it has taken me to finally build him, Games Workshop have released a newer and better plastic version. But I was not going to be defeated. So he is finally together, and I will get him painted at some point in the future. The good news is I now have a full 2,000 point Space Marine army ready for the weekend. And it's only a local tournament, and luckily they do not need to be painted, but I will get them finished eventually. And then I am drawing a line under my Space Marine army because I am honestly just tired of painting silver over and over and over. So that was my hobby achievement from last week. Let me know yours in the comments. Whatever it is appreciated here. We can all celebrate together and encourage each other with whatever weird and wacky hobby we like to spend our spare time doing. And now that we've wrapped up our hobby progress from last week, let's head over to the winner's circle where we celebrate your incredible achievements and give shout outs to our hobby gold medalists from the comments. It's time to step into the winner's circle, and this is where we give a big shout out to everybody who has set themselves a hobby goal and smashed them last week. Whether you were painting, crafting, coding, crocheting, or collecting, this is your time to shine. Now, it seems like everybody has gone full Warhammer mode lately. Maybe it's the darker nights and the cold weather making all of us reach for our brushes and sprues, but either way, we've got some brilliant updates this week. First up, Strix Aluko 97 built and painted a full squad of easy build Infernus Marines as a palette cleanser after burning out after a whole Tau kill team. I feel this one deeply. I built some easy build kits myself last week, and honestly, sometimes you just need that chill session. Next, Ardinti painted a sample model for both their Imperial Guard army and their Death Guard army. That is some serious forward planning that I always say I'll do and then never actually manage. They're also modelling their Death Guard Demon Prince, which sounds like a big job, so fingers crossed that wraps up nicely. We've then got Magister 187, who's diving into the Horus Heresy with a custom Iron Warriors Company concept that they're excited about, and honestly, being excited about your next hobby goal is half the battle. And finally, Benjamin Mitchell primed his first mob of Orc Boys in 20 years, or would have if the weather hadn't been so absolutely awful. If you've ever tried priming minis in the cold, you'll know exactly how that ends. So there we have it, a full lineup of Games Workshop inspired hobby achievements. Huge thanks to everybody who has shared their goals and wins over this first season of It's Saturday Morning. Seeing how passionate you all are about your hobbies has honestly kept me motivated with mine. So cheers for that. But with the shout outs done, it's time to head back to the hobby bench for more hobby hangout. All right, we have celebrated last week, so it's time to set our goals for the next 7 days. What are you looking to achieve over the coming week? Maybe you are planning to finally perfect your impression of a dial-up modem. Maybe you're going to create a collection of custom keychains by shrinking crisp packets. Yeah, the ones we popped in the oven and watched them shrink down into miniatures. Or maybe you have decided that this is the week to learn how to balance a biscuit on your forehead while reciting your favourite poem. Whatever your plans are, let us know in the comments so your goals are set in stone and we can cheer each other on. Who knows? You might even find someone who is into the exact same thing as you. For me, since this is the season finale of It's Saturday Morning, I am treating myself with my upcoming hobby goal. I'm not going to learn anything new. I'm not going to build anything. I am not going to spend hours painting miniatures. My hobby goal for this week is simply to make sure I thoroughly enjoy myself at my upcoming Warhammer tournament. It's been run by my local gaming shop and they have a great community. I know a lot of people who will be playing because I've been going in for years. So it's not just a tournament, it's a chance to catch up and socialise with people I do not get to see very often and who I have a lot in common with. We will have some fun, roll some dice, and have a laugh. It does not matter whether I win or lose, and I can tell you now, I will lose because I am not very good at this game. I just find it fun to play with my friends. What matters is by the end of the tournament, I have had a great time and all the painting and model building that I have done over the past 12 weeks feels worth it. I want to walk away as a happy boy. So that is my simple hobby goal. Enjoy myself and have fun with my friends. And remember, not all hobby goals have to be huge chunks of effort and time that stress you out. Hobbies should be fun and relaxing. They should not overwhelm you or leave you feeling exhausted. You do not always have to be productive. Sometimes your hobby goal can be to chill out, to relax, to let yourself unwind. It is important to find time for your hobbies because they help your well-being and give you the space away from the stresses of life. And if you're not able to hit a hobby goal one week, that's absolutely fine. Do not beat yourself up about it. These things happen. But if you find you are repeatedly struggling to hit your goals, have a think about whether your goals are too big or whether you're carving out enough time for yourself. You might need to make things smaller or find more space in your week to enjoy your hobby. So let us know your hobby goals for the coming week in the comments, and we can work on them together. Whatever they are, I am proud of you. I'm proud of everything that you have achieved over the past 12 weeks. Now that we set our hobby goals for the week, let's move on to bit by bit and explore the next rule in the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook. Welcome to Bit by Bit, the part of the show where we break something down every week, bit by bit. And right now, we are working through the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook and making it as easy as possible for new players to jump into the game as quickly as they can. And today, we're looking at possibly one of the most important and probably the most exciting part of Dungeons and Dragons for players, and that is combat. Combat is what happens when your adventurers come across something dangerous and the situation kicks off. Instead of everybody talking at once, the game keeps everything tidy by chopping the fight into small pieces so everybody knows when it's their turn. First, we have rounds and turns. A round is about 6 seconds in the game world. Inside that round, everybody in the battle gets one turn. When everybody has taken a turn, the round ends and a new one begins. This keeps the fight moving in a clear order. So how does the fight actually start? Well, there are a few steps. Step one is establishing positions. The Dungeon Master looks at where everybody is standing, where the monsters are and how far apart you all are and what is around you. Think of it like setting up the pieces on a board so everybody knows where they are starting. Step two is rolling initiative. Initiative is a fancy way of deciding who goes first, basically. Everyone in the fight rolls a dice, adds their dexterity bonus. The DM does it for the monsters. Whoever rolls the highest goes first, and then the next highest, and so on until you reach the person who rolled the lowest. That order stays the same for the whole fight. If somebody is caught by surprise, their roll for initiative might have disadvantage, which makes it much harder for them to act quickly. Step three is taking turns. When it's your turn, you can move and you can take an action. You can move up to the number on your character sheet called speed. That might mean walking, running, climbing, crawling, or jumping, whatever makes sense. You can also take one action. Actions include things like attacking, casting a spell, helping a friend, or dodging to defend yourself. You can decide whether you want to move first or take your action first. You can also talk in short bursts on your turn, like shouting a warning or giving a quick instruction. You can also interact with one thing for free. So if you want to open a door or grab a dropped item or push something out the way, you can do that as part of your move or action. If you want to do a second thing though, you need to use your action for it. And remember, you do not have to do anything on your turn if you do not want to. You can stand still, take a breath, and let the fight unfold for a moment. Combat continues round after round until the fight naturally ends. Maybe the monsters are defeated, maybe the players are forced to run, or maybe both sides decide to stop. And that's the absolute basics of how combat works in Dungeons and Dragons. If there is any part of the Player's Handbook that you want me to break down in a future, bit by bit, let me know in the comments and we will get to it very soon indeed. But with our rule breakdown in bit by bit wrapped up, let's head over to Hit and Miss and dive into the best and worst comics of my week. Welcome to Hit and Miss, the part of the show where I let you know the best and the worst of my week. And this time we're diving into comics. I read a whole heap of them this week, more than I have in ages, and there was a clear winner and a clear loser sitting at opposite ends of the scale. But before I get into it, I want to hear from you. What are your own hits and misses this week? They don't have to be comics. Maybe your hit was finally finishing that creative project you've been putting off, or maybe your miss was stepping on a rogue piece of Lego. Whatever it is, share them in the comments and we will celebrate or commiserate together. Right then, starting with the miss of the week. And that infamous title goes to Captain Planet and the Planeteers issue 6 by Dynamite Comics. Sadly, Captain Planet has landed in my miss of the week more than once now, and that really stings because I am a millennial. I love a good reboot of 90s nostalgia, or rather, I want to love it. I'll grab anything that is remotely 80s or 90s related and hope for the best, but this series has just never hit the mark for me. Let's start with the positives. Some of the panels look awesome. The colours are bold. The design of this new, more aggressive Captain Planet looks great. But between these moments, there are plenty of panels that feel generic and uninspiring. And when you put it all together, it's a comic that looks like a solid 5 out of 10 on its best day. The bigger issue is the pacing. This arc runs for 6 issues, and from what I can tell, it tries to cover the entire Captain Planet story in that short space of time. We get our Planeteers. They discover their powers. They learn to work together. We meet Captain Pollution, and he is destroyed, all in 6 issues. Everything happens so fast that nothing lands. There is no depth, no time to care about characters, and story points just fall into place conveniently to move things along. It's very surface level and doesn't give you much reason to get invested. It's a shame, really. I actually cancelled my subscription, and that is very rare for me. Normally, I can find something to love in every series, but this one, it just fell flat. It became the comic I kept putting off each month, and that is never a good sign. But if you've been reading Captain Planet and the Planeteers and you've enjoyed it, I genuinely want to hear why in the comments. Maybe there's something I missed that made this work for you. Now, on to the hit of this week. And this one is a dark horse, quite literally, because it's from Dark Horse Comics. My hit of the week goes to Robo Wolf 2. And I think this comic is not on the radar of many people, which is a crime because it is brilliant. It's got this wild 80s energy, the kind of thing that makes you think of Kung Fury, all neon lights and over the top action dialed up to 11. The artwork is incredible from the very first page. The character designs are fun and creative, and it's fun of satirical nods to the 80s and 90s action films. You've got characters, they look like they walked straight out of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Evil Dead, but twisted into something completely new. Despite being only 2 issues in, the story is already deep. You've got character backstories, team tensions, even some surprisingly emotional moments. It's funny, it's brutal, it balances both perfectly. The dialogue is full of cheesy one-liners and fight scene banter that had me genuinely laughing out loud. It's silly in all the right ways, but it's still clever enough to have weight and depth underneath. I picked this one up on a whim, not really expecting much, and it has completely won me over. The art, the writing, the humor, the tone, it is all spot on. Honestly, I could open this comic at any page and find something that I would happily get tattooed. That's how good the designs are. So my hit of the week goes to Robo Wolf issue 2, one of the most fun, stylish, and unexpectedly heartfelt comics I have read in a long time. So there you have it. My hit and miss of the week. Have you read either of these comics? What did you think? And what were your own hits and misses this week? It doesn't matter what they are, comics, films, food, or just life in general. Nothing's off the table here on It's Saturday Morning. Now that we've dissected the highs and lows of this week's comics and hit and miss, let's jump into Follower's Choice and hear your top recommendations for new readers. Welcome to Follower's Choice, the part of the show where I ask you for your comic book and manga recommendations that you'd give to new readers. Because let's all be honest, we've all been new to this nerdy world at some point. And if you were anything like me, you'll remember that first time walking into the comic shop, a whole wall of bright, shiny covers staring back at you, and you've no idea where to even start. So let's make that easier for the next wave of readers. Let me know in the comments what you'd recommend. Maybe it's a brand new series that's just kicking off. Maybe it's an ongoing one that's got a great jumping on point, or maybe it's an old school classic that still holds up as the perfect gateway into comic or manga. Now, I've had some brilliant manga recommendations this week, so if you're looking to dip your toes into manga, here are a few gems that you might want to check out. First up, Optimus Phil recommended Guyver, the Bio-Boosted Armor. And honestly, that name alone sounds metal as anything. They also threw in Cyber City Odio, I think it's pronounced, 808, which is actually an anime, not a manga. But let's be real, those two worlds overlap quite a lot, so I'll allow it. Thanks for those, buddy. Next, Razor Unleashed 2574 recommended Soul Eater. Now, as I've said before, manga's still a fairly new world for me too, but after reading the synopsis of that one, it sounds incredibly cool and is definitely going on my festive reading list. And finally, Jackie Starr recommended 2 English language original mangas, Clock Striker and Apple Black. Now, I don't know if there is any kind of stigma around English language originals in the manga world, but from the sound of it, Apple Black has an amazing concept and is absolutely going on my wish list too. So there you have it, a few brilliant manga recommendations for new readers. If you've read any of these, let me know in the comments what you think and keep those suggestions coming. The more people we bring into this hobby, the better, at least in my very nerdy eyes. And with all those fantastic recommendations from Follower's Choice, let's dive into the book club and chat about what we've been reading this week, along with my own review. Welcome to Book Club, the part of the show where we take a look at all the books that we've been reading together over the past week. It's all about sharing what's on our reading list, finding hidden gems, and helping each other discover the next great read. Before I jump into my pick for this week, let me know in the comments what you've been reading, what you thought of it, and what you'd recommend to other readers. First up, a shout out to Conquer Cup, who last week recommended The Player of Games by Ian Banks. It's from 1988 and I had never heard of it before. When I read the synopsis, it sounded completely bizarre and honestly not something I would usually pick up. But when I saw how many people rate it so highly, it definitely piqued my interest. If you've read it, let me know your thoughts in the comments because this one's suddenly jumped onto my radar. But as for me, I finished the Arlong Park arc in one piece, reading chapters 86 to 95. Oda's attention to detail is still incredible. He never forgets the rules of his world or his character's powers. I love Luffy's stretching ability isn't just for fighting, it becomes part of clever story moments, like when he's drowning and the crew stretch his head up to help him breathe. It's ridiculous, but it works and shows how Oda keeps finding fresh, clever ways to use abilities without letting them go stale. Wait, hang on. I've just thought. How did Luffy's neck stretch if he's underwater and all his powers have disappeared? I may have just countered my own point. Is that a mistake in the lore? Weird. Anyway, Usopp continues to be both frustrating and fascinating. His childish weapon of choice and constant fear fits his background, and while he's still a bit of a pain, you can see him growing braver and more inventive. He and Luffy feel like opposites who somehow balance each other out. They are both incredibly naive, but one uses it as their strength, but to the other, it is their weakness. The fights are fun, but can drag a little, especially when you already know the crew is going to win. The action gets busy at times, and Zoro's fighting on the brink of death moments are starting to feel a little bit routine. Still, the energy and emotion carry it through. Arlong himself is a standout. His sharp traits aren't just for show. He can grow back teeth and even use them as weapons. Those little touches make the world feel alive. And I love that Luffy just doesn't beat him up. He destroys what Arlong values the most to defeat him, his map room and Nami's allegiance. It feels like every villain in One Piece is defeated when they lose the thing that defines them, which is a really smart theme to build on. All in all, this was a fantastic arc. Exciting, tense, emotional, and full of great character moments. Even with a few pacing issues, Oda's creativity and world building make One Piece a brilliant first manga to get into. So that's what I've been reading this week. Now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments what you've been reading and any recommendations you'd give to fellow readers. And after our book club reviews, let's have a quickie and explore the best way to track and organise your book collection. It's time once again for a quickie, and this week I want to talk about the apps that help you track your book collection, and more specifically, how I track mine, and then I want your advice on how you track yours, because I've still not found the perfect answer. I love tracking collections. I don't know which part of my brain it tickles, but if I can track something, I probably will. And for books, it really helps because when you're out and about and you spot something unexpectedly in a charity shop, it is so easy to forget whether you already own it, especially if it is from a long-running series where you have half of the books already. I did a lot of research and a lot of experimentation, but while I love tracking things, I am not paying for dozens of different apps for every collection I own. I would be broke before I had shelved anything. So my first requirement was the app had to be free. Secondly, I wanted to split my collection into different folders so I could track what I own and what I've read and what I've not read and what I'm hunting for. And because I have a lot of friends who read, I also wanted to share my profile with them and see theirs. So if I spot something they might like, I can check their list quickly before picking it up for them. After a lot of trial and error, I ended up using the Goodreads app. It mostly does everything I need. If you search for a book on Google, Goodreads is usually one of the first results. It gives you a synopsis and reviews, so it's a widely used app and website. It lets me track my books, put them into different folders and add my friends, see their wish list, follow where books appear in a series and leave ratings and reviews for things I have finished, all for free. The biggest issue I have, though, is there is no offline mode. And for some reason, charity shops seem to exist in little pockets of signal-free chaos, especially near the book selection. So a quick check can turn into walking out of the shop, looking the book up, then walking back in again. It's not ideal. The second issue is checking friends' wish lists. You can view them, but if your friend has hundreds of books saved, it can take ages to scroll through, especially when signal is bad. Sometimes you can search for a book and Goodreads will tell you if it's on a friend's wish list, and then sometimes that feature just disappears, and I can't work out why. So, if you want a free way to track your books, I do recommend Goodreads because the pros definitely outweigh the cons. But those little nuances mean I'm still curious about what else is out there. So I want to ask you, what apps do you use to track your books? And what do you think of them? One of my favourite parts of reading and buying books is sharing that excitement with my friends and surprising each other with finds. So being able to share wish lists is important to me, along with being able to check them anywhere, regardless of signal. That's it for today's quickie. Those are my thoughts on the app I use and my plea for your recommendations. Let me know in the comments if there is a better book tracking app that I should try. And with our book collection sorted, let's jump into the fun of Lick That Pokemon and see which card our tongues would love the most. It is time to play Lick That Pokemon, the most tantalizingly tasty Pokemon game show on the entire internet. It's the show that's gross and repulsive, yet you just can't look away. This is the Pokemon TCG pack battle with a moist twist. I'll be opening 2 packets of Pokemon trading cards, but we're not crowning a winner based on rarity, cool factor, or whether my all-time favourite Pokemon Diglett shows up. No. The winner is crowned based on which pack has the most lickable Pokemon in it. And don't look at me like that. You can't tell me you've looked at a Dipplin and not wondered what those juicy little droplets might taste like. This is the internet. We've gone too far to turn back now. Today's contenders are the 2 mighty sets. Black Bolt and White Flare. I think that is all the explanation you need. So before I start drooling on the desk, let's rip these packs and see who's taking home the Golden Tongue Trophy. I think, off the top of my head, Black Bolt has a lot more work to do than White Flare. I can't remember what cards are in either of these sets, but I think White Flare has a better lickability chance overall. So let's do Black Bolt first and see what we can get. Clang, I always think is pretty medicinal, a bit like something at the dentist, and not the worst. Sololsis, I don't know what it's going to taste like, but I think it always looks a little bit gummy. We've got a Clink and a Clang coming up. An Electric, not putting my tongue anywhere near that. And a Zekrom EX. Okay, for a set that I don't think has many lickable Pokemon in, I don't think... Oh, it's on the floor. And Sololsis down there. I don't think that's all that bad. I think it could have done worse. But White Flare, you are the pack that should win this. But have you got what it takes? Let's see. Mindfu, Oshawott, a Trubbish. Trubbish is one of my favourite Pokemon of all time, but am I going to put my tongue on him? If I owned him, do you know what? I'm not going to lie. Probably give him a little kiss every now and then. A Vanillux. There's a Vanillux. That was the Pokemon that I forgot. Hey, that's weird. Back-to-back Harlequins. Normal and reverse holo. Very bizarre. Zorak, right. White Flare. Black Bolt, sorry. I think you tried so hard there. Where's that? Oh, it's disappeared. Use your imagination. There was a Sololsis. We've got, I can never pronounce this, Reuniclus, a Clink and a Clang. They're not the worst. Clink and Clang, very sterile, like I say, going to the dentist. Sololsis, I always think looks like some juicy gummy sweeter gusher or something like that. Black Bolt, White Flare even. You had a Trubbish. not the best, but you do have a Vanillux. So I think there is a clear winner. I can't argue this one. White Flare is crowned the champion of this week's Lick That Pokemon and the season finale champion of Licked That Pokemon for this tasty little Vanillux. Would I put strawberry sauce on it or chocolate sauce? Probably bubblegum, if I'm being fair. So there we have it. What do you think of my winner? Did I crown the right Pokemon? Or was there another little critter that you would have awarded the title of most lickable Pokemon? Let me know in the comments if you disagree with my choice. If you disagree entirely with this concept, or if you've got your own pick for which Pokemon you would most like to give a good old tongue waggle. That's how we do it here on Lick That Pokemon. After our tasty Pokemon pack battle though, let's dive into just one line and put your book knowledge to the test. Welcome to Just One Line, the part of the show where we find out how well you really know your books from, well, just one line. I'll read you the opening line of a book and you've got to let me know in the comments which book you think it is from. But before we dive into this week's challenge, let's recap last week's line. I can officially confirm that almost nobody got it right, but we did have one hero rise from the comments. Shout out to Jacko Blumley, who guessed it correctly. Last week's first line was from Truckers by Terry Pratchett. Seriously though, where are the rest of my Terry Pratchett fans hiding? I was sure at least some of you would swoop in with this one. Truckers was actually the first Pratchett book I ever read as a kid, and it still holds a special place in my heart. But enough about last week. Let's move on to this week's challenge. See if you recognise this opening line. When is a legend legend? Why is a myth a myth? How old, disused must a fact be for it to be relegated to the category fairy tale? And why do certain facts remain incontrovertible while others lose their validity to assume a shabby, unstable character? So what do you think? Which book is that the first line from? Let me know your guesses in the comments and keep them coming. Right, after testing your book knowledge in just one line, let's shine the spotlight on the cooperative board game Pandemic. Welcome to the Spotlight, the part of the show where we shine a spotlight on something cool. And this week we have something very cool indeed. Today, we are shining the spotlight on one of my favourite board games of all time, Pandemic. Now, the reason I wanted to do a spotlight on this was because I was talking to my parents last week and they reminded me that whenever they visit my sister, my nephew will always find a way to cheat at literally every single game he plays. It does not matter what the rules are. He will discover a loophole that no legal system has ever considered. So I recommended Pandemic because it's a cooperative game. It's you and your group versus the board. And while nothing on earth can truly stop a determined child from cheating, a cooperative board game is probably the best bet. It at least removes the temptation to do it for personal glory. You have to make decisions together. You talk through every turn and it becomes a team effort rather than every person for themselves. So what is Pandemic? Pandemic is a cooperative strategy game by Matt Leacock and released in 2008 by Zeman Games. The basic idea is simple. 4 deadly diseases have broken out across the globe. You and your team of specialists has to travel the world and treat the infections and discover cures before everything gets completely out of hand. It sounds dramatic because it is. Each player takes on the role of a different specialist with a unique ability. One person might be a medic who clears diseases more effectively. Someone else might be a scientist who can discover cures more easily, and so on. You work together, take actions, draw cards, and try to stay ahead of the outbreaks that spread across the board. If too many outbreaks happen, you lose. If you run out of cards, you lose. If a disease spreads too far, you lose. It is essentially a big global panic simulator, but in a really fun way. Pandemic looks overwhelming when you first set it up. There are cubes, cards, tokens, a world map, and a rulebook that looks a little bit like a tax return. But honestly, once you start playing, the rhythm of the game clicks very quickly. You take 4 actions. You draw a card, the board fights back, and then you pass it to the next player. People who have never played this strategy game before often go into it convinced it will be too much. But every time I have taught Pandemic to new players, they picked it up rapidly and have had a great time. Now, let us talk stress. Pandemic is stressful, but in the best way. It is not a guaranteed win. It is not a chill Sunday afternoon where you float through victory without a problem. By the mid-game, you are all hunched over the table, desperately trying to think of any possible combination of actions that will keep South America from exploding for one more turn. It pushes you to think, to plan ahead, and to genuinely work as a team. But even when you lose, and you will lose, it is still fun. You come out of the game laughing, replaying the moment everything went wrong, and immediately planning to try it again. Pandemic has also grown into a full series since its release. There is Pandemic on the Brink, which adds new roles and challenges and ways to make the game even harder. Pandemic in the Lab gives you new steps to cure diseases. Pandemic the Cure is a dice-based version. There is even Pandemic Legacy, which is an ongoing campaign where the board changes permanently as you play. And there are themed versions like Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, if you want your global disaster to include tentacles. So that is the spotlight on Pandemic. It is one of my favourite cooperative games, and I would love to hear your recommendations. What are your favourite cooperative board games, and how do you deal with cheaters when you play? Because in my eyes, if you win by cheating, you have not won. It does not count, and honestly, people will probably stop wanting to play with you. So think about that next time you are about to bend the rules. Let me know your favourite cooperative games in the comments. And as we wrap up our spotlight on Pandemic, the end of the show is drawing near. So let's get ready to close things out. And that brings us to the end of today's show. And also the end of the first season of It's Saturday Morning, the Saturday morning TV revival that millennials never knew they needed back in their lives until now. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an absolutely wild and fun ride. And It's Saturday Morning will be back in the new year, bigger and better than I could have ever imagined. Balancing these videos with a full-time job has given me a whole new respect for content creators everywhere because so much goes into making this stuff happen. But the biggest thanks goes to every single person who has watched this series. Over the course of the season, almost 1,500 people of you have subscribed and followed across my various channels. And that absolutely blows my mind, and I cannot thank each and every one of you enough. The content will keep coming, so head over to TikTok if you want updates on how season 2 is coming along and to get a sneak peek at all the jollies I'll be placing in front of your eyes in 2026. And on Instagram, you can find my comment reviews, recommendations, Pokemon pack openings, and all the other great stuff I keep myself busy with when I'm not filming these videos, because you can never take the nerd out of the boy. The links are in my bio. Once again, thank you to everybody who has watched and taken part in this series. Until series 2, I've been Steve, and it's Saturday morning, baby.